And so when I say Chinese, I want you to scream out the nation that's associated with this. For example, if I say Chinese, you're going to say what?
China.
All right, let's say it with authority. When I say Chinese, you say what? China. All right, that's just a test right there. So here we go. Chinese.
China.
Russian.
Russia.
Italian.
Italy.
German.
Germany.
Swedish.
Sweden.
Korean.
Korea.
Egyptian.
Egypt.
Nigerian.
Nigeria.
Black.
Exactly. Nothing. Tell him, Pastor. Tell him, Pastor. Black, nothing. Yes.
I hope you were able to successfully identify the issue.
Want to say peace and blessings to everyone. I know this is a late night playbook. I normally start this at 10:15, so I'm not going to be long. Don't want to hold you guys up too late as well, but this is a late night playbook. And as you see on your screen, we're going to deal with Doctrines of Devils. I'm sure some of you guys saw the interview that Moray Brown did with the rabbi. And so I wanted to do a playbook off of that. And what we're going to do is, if we may have to do that tomorrow night, or we'll push it back to next Thursday, and we'll do a playbook based off of that interview. And we'll address some of the things that was covered there, like Zionism, which we're going to cover a little bit tonight, but we'll go deeper into Zionism, the whole history of what Zionism is. How did it come about? Who created it? What's the doctrine? So we're going to deal with a lot of that next week. We'll deal with some of it today or tonight, so to speak. And we'll cover some foundational stuff too, because I want to address a couple of things that has come, questions that have been presented to me in regards to the text. So again, I want to say Shalom Lak, Mash Paka. Want to say peace and blessings to each and every one of you guys. And I hope and pray that you guys are having a blessed night. So what I want to do here before we get started, I know it's kind of late, and I just want to give some shout outs to you guys for taking time out of your schedule tonight to be up late and watch this presentation. So I want to start off by saying shalom to Sister Carol. Appreciate your prayers and support over the years. Truth Talk, Shawnee, want to say the same to you as well. Want to say shalom to you. Who else do we have here? Batith Yahoo Ben Israel, want to say shalom, mash pakah to you as well. Want to say shalom to Cassandra Sellers. Want to say shalom to you, sister. Angie Love, want to say peace and blessings to you. Who else do we have here? Want to say shalom to John. Robert, want to say salama to you. Sister Yvette Powell, want to say salama to you. Who else do we have here? Anaya Batya, excuse me. Anaya Batya, want to say shalom, lak, mash, pakha. And it is well with me. And I pray that it is well with the rest of the family. Want to say, who else do we have here? let me see here. I want to say peace and blessings to Joy. Who else do we have here? Tiff C. Want to say shalom to you as well. And Cool J. Want to say peace and blessings to you. Want to say shalom to you. And thank you for the support. And if there's anything that any subjects that you may want me to touch on, feel free to send me an email. For those that want to contact me, my email address is at the bottom of the page here, as you can see here, bottom of your screen. And feel free to reach out to me. All right. It's on the ticker that's going to cross your screen on the bottom. So thank you. Appreciate it, Cool J. All right. Want to say Talisha, I want to say shalom to you. Who else do we have here? Derora want to say shalom to you as well. Oh, I'm just getting started, so you didn't miss anything. I'm up pretty late here, but you didn't miss anything. I made it a point to start my day of rest, start my Shabbat this tomorrow. So my pre-Shabbat, the eve of the Shabbat, I decided to take that off. Just take a break from everything. All right. Want to say peace and blessings to you. Want to say shalom to you as well. Ramal Yahoo. Appreciate you for the support as well. Vanessa Landis. Want to say peace and blessings to you. Up next, peace and blessings to you as well. Again, I know this is a late night session. This is one of the very few late nights that you have seen me do. So we'll just be late night geeks together, but I appreciate the support. So I'm going to go ahead and maximize the screen so that way you can see the full slides here. And again, we're going to do a full presentation on Zionism. We're going to deal with the history of Zionism, but we're not going to do that tonight because it's a lesson that's pretty in depth and intense. So we will do that beginning next week, but I'm going to touch on a little bit of it. But I want to, highlight a few other things along the way. All right. So let's go ahead and get started here. Doctrines of Devils. Have you not read? Doctrines of Devils. Have you not read? And that's the topic for tonight. But I want to start off by dealing with some basic stuff, some things that many have taken out of context, right? And have, deceptively taught about the Israelites, right? So I want to use some scripture because many of our brothers and sisters are having trouble. It's challenging trying to explain this history to our fellow brothers and sisters. Unfortunately, many of them will hold you to a higher standard when it comes to showing that you are the people of the book. They'll hold you to a higher standard, a higher baseline, a higher bar than what they will allow others to do. Even you can show your DNA, you can tell them about your family history, you could do all these different things, but they will go literal on you and say, hey, show me in the scriptures that we are the people of the book. They are literally looking for a scripture to say, guess what? The African Americans or the Negro Americans, whatever terms you want to use, these terms are interchangeable with slave. If you guys saw part 1 of The Road to Savannah, and part 2 is going to be just as riveting, and a lot of information I'm going to share in part 2 is going to be based upon history. But I explained to you what Negro mean in this country. The word Negro is interchangeable with slave, black, right? So it's interchangeable with those terms in this country. Okay, so, but nevertheless, it seems as if we, the sons and daughters of slaves, we are held at a higher bar. The bar is so high that, they want us to literally prove. Find a scripture that says, hey, you are the people of the book. Well, we're going to cover a few things. And this is not about trying to convince those that are constantly coming against you and I, but this is just help edify. This is kind of what we could call Hebrew apologetics or Israelite apologetics. All right. So let's get started here. Let's start with answering this question here. What's the biblical, what's the biblical Israelite skin complexion? We can answer this pretty quick and easy, but I'm just going to touch on just a couple of verses here to build, just to give you something to go off of. And I'm going to share with you a few other things, and we'll continue to build this lesson up tonight. But what's the biblical Israelite skin complexion? What is it? Are there any clues? Absolutely. There's plenty of clues all through the scriptures. But this is one of the scriptures. This is the text that many would use to say, hey, it's just referring to mourning. Jeremiah 14:2, or this entire chapter, it's just all about mourning. This has nothing to do with showing you or telling you the skin complexion of the Israelites. And this is pretty easy to debunk, but I'm going to show you how. I'm going to allow you to go into my methodology of how I go in how I address the text. I'm going to show you how to defend this here. Jeremiah 14:2. Let's begin. Let's start here. It says, Judah mourneth, Abal, and the gates thereof languish, Amal. They are black unto the ground, Aratazah, or some would say Arats. And the cry of Jerusalem is gone up. Let me read that again. Judah mourneth, Abal. Make a note of that word mourneth, Abal. And the gates thereof languish, Amal. They are black unto the ground, Aratazah. And again, some will say Arats. And the cry of Jerusalem is gone up. Let's define the Hebrew definition of the word mourn, Abal. Let's see what it means. And we're going to put this together here. Abal. We're going to the primitive root, as you see here, to bewail, lament, mourn. And as you see in the entry here below, it says to mourn, lament. Now let's deal with the next word that we saw here, amal, which it transliterates to the word languish. And let's see what this word means. It says here, to droop, by implication, to be sick, to mourn, languish, be weak, wax feeble. All right. So we see here in the entry here, entry number 1, to be weak, to droop, to languish, to be exhausted. All right. So we see so far the two words that we identified, they are synonymous to each other. So if we properly parse the text and transliterate it, it will actually say Judah is displaying a passionate display of grief, and their gates, their city are weak. If we just properly transliterate it. All right. All right. So Judah is displaying a passionate display of grief, and their gates, their city are weak. But let's deal with this word quadar. The definition of this word quadar, it says here, to be ashy, an example, dark colored. And then we see some other definitions here. We see by implication to mourn, right? But here's another kicker, be black. Now, this is where it gets dicey. This is where many would say this right here means mourn. So we're going to have 3 words in the same paragraph that's synonymous to mourn. But notice where it says here to be ashy, an example, dark color. And what's interesting is when you see here, even though it's covered here, you see kader, Yeah, Kedar. You see it right here, Kedar. And Kedar, and that's how you pronounce it, right? Kedar. But notice what it says, dark. And then notice what it says here, a son of Ishmael, descendants of Kedar. But we notice here it says dark. Then when you go to there's another word down here, even though I can't show it up here, but even if we went here, right? When we just go here, right? And this word right here, kid, rune, right? If you go here, you'll see that this means dark. But notice how these two words, right, are making reference to this word as the primitive root. This says dark. This says dark, right? Has nothing to do with morning. And when you understand Hebrew, right, ancient Hebrew, 3 consonants, right? Well, Hebrew is based upon the consonant, vowel, consonant structure. And as you see here, they'll teach you that every word starts with what? A root, 3 consonants. You can take it a step further and you'll start dealing with each letter, because each letter is a word or is a syllable in itself. It has a meaning, right? But nevertheless, if we, for example, if we looked at the qua, right? Here, this would mean, this letter means balance, right? It means balance. Horizon. Okay. The da or daleth, or excuse me, dalath, some would say daleth when you're dealing with the Israeli language, that means lid. And then you have the ra'ash, while others would say resh, that means protocol, head. Okay. But nevertheless, every word in Hebrew, you'll get, when you get to the primary root, you'll see 3 consonants. And it's based upon consonant, vowel, consonant structure. So this is the primitive root. So pay attention to this. Make a note of this. This word here, right? We see here based upon whatever, and these, not getting into all the verbs here that you see here, not getting into all of that. But as you see here, you see ashy, right? Ashy dark, to be ashy dark, to be ashy dark. So I showed you a couple of words that point to this word as being the primitive root, right? And I want you to make sure you take a note of that. Make a note of that, just so that way you understand. See, unfortunately, many have come up with all kinds of constructs, modern constructs, and then backdated. Ancient Hebrew was very easy. It was free from all the ambiguity that we see added to it now. It was not confusing. It was not generic. It was not vague. Very direct. So to be ashy, an example, dark color. And I want you to make sure you see up at the top left corner of your screen where my mouse is, so you can see to be ashy, an example, dark color. So I want y'all to make sure, and I showed you some words back here. Next time we do this, I'll actually highlight these other words that all point to this primitive root word here. And they all make reference to what? Skin complexion being dark. So don't let people fool you by trying to play on you because you don't know Hebrew, and they will try to play and try to get into these what we call it in the tech world, techno babble or techno jargon, when they start just talking and trying to put terms and phrases together that they would believe is over your head, that you won't be able to understand just because they know that they can't properly answer the question. You guys dealt with that before, whether it's dealing with someone fixing your PC, someone coming out to fix your wire your cable, whatever. That technician, you ask them a question and that technician may not be doing his or her job effectively. So then they get into this techno babble, techno jargon, to where as though they just start throwing out all these technical terms, hoping to discourage you from inquiring or asking more questions. So don't get caught up in all of that stuff. As you see here, to be ashy. An example, dark color. All right. So I want you to make sure y'all highlight that. Dark color. To be ashy, an example, dark colored. I didn't make this up. I didn't write this comprehensive Strong's dictionary of the Bible. These with the in-depth definitions there. I didn't write this, and you didn't write this. So Jeremiah 14, verse 2 is describing Judah's physical appearance during a famine. Let me say that again. Jeremiah chapter 14, verse 2 is describing Judah's physical appearance during a famine. It's not just dealing with the state of whether or not they have an appetite, them being sick. It's describing their entire appearance, physical appearance. Absolutely, my brother Brian. You know what I'm talking about, Dial. You network engineer, so you know that techno gibberish that many would do just to cause that person, that user or that customer or whomever, cause them to kind of settle down, back up. Okay, so that people would do that all the time. You see it up. You see it inside those that are teaching the scriptures. They do the same thing. All right. So Jeremiah again, 14 and 2 is describing Judah's physical appearance during a famine. And I'm gonna break this down some, just so that way you guys understand this. So what you see on your screen, this is actually an illustration, a proper illustration of what Jeremiah is describing here. Because here it is, you see Quadar, you see Somalians here, look just like you and I, skin complexion like you and I, but notice their skin is ashy. I know if I don't put any lotion on after getting out of the shower, and especially if it's cool, that cool air hits it, I'm going to be ashy, just like you guys. But this right here is an illustration of what Jeremiah chapter 14 is dealing with. That's what this is dealing with. This is dealing with a famine. This is the appearance. This is what they are describing right here. This is what they're describing right here. All right. Their skin is ashy, but it's still dark. So let's go to verse 3 and 4 of Jeremiah 14. Let's read it. It says, and their nobles, and this is to confirm what I said to you, and their nobles have sent their little ones to the waters. They came to the pits and found no water, Mayam. They returned their vessels, Kalai, empty. Rayaquam, they were ashamed and confounded and covered their heads. Let me read it again. And their nobles have sent their little ones to the waters. They came to the pits and found no water. They returned with their vessels empty. They were ashamed and confounded and covered their heads. Because the ground, Adamah, is chapped, Katha, for there was no rain in the earth. The plowmen were ashamed. They covered their heads. Now, this is explaining just what I pointed out. There is a drought. So the prophet is describing, giving you a description of the physical appearance of the Israelites. Said that their skin was ashy. Said that their skin was ashy like the ground. We already know what Adamah is. That's where you get Adam, Adamah, Adamni. Some would say Adamni. Right? When we start looking at these different words that comes from the primitive roots, like the ground, right? We know that Adam was what? Dark, red like the ground. Not what we've been institutionalized to thinking what red is when we hear the word ruddy. But nevertheless, it says, because the ground, Adamah, is chapped, Katha, for there was no rain in the earth. This is dealing with a famine, as I just pointed out. So let's deal with the Hebrew definition of the word chapped. And we'll deal with the etymology of it too, so that way you'll understand. It says to prostrate, to break down, beat down. Then it goes on to say to be shattered, be broken. But that still doesn't give you the full definition of chap. Let's go to the etymology definition of this word chap, so you understand we're dealing with a skin complexion, and we're dealing with the ground, right? So it's saying that Israel is, their skin complexion is chapped like the ground. Come on, guys. You know, like I know, you don't put any lotion on. Come on, guys. You don't put any lotion on. You know, you seen how the ground can look when it's dried up with no water in it. It'll look just like the crevices in your skin, your dry skin, ashy skin. Look at what this says here. When we start looking at the etymology of this word chap, it says cause to split or crack. Right? Let me say that again. It says cause to split or crack. That's what happens when your skin is chapped. Your skin becomes so dry that, matter of fact, chapped lips. Your skin can be so dry and chapped that it can start cracking and it can split. And actually, you can get sores. Same thing with your skin. And that's what's being described in this text. So if we actually properly transliterated this text, this is what it would actually say. Judah is displaying a passionate display of grief. And their gates, their city, are weak, and they are dark and ashy like the ground. Right? That's what it means. That's exactly what it means. Let me go back here and read it again, just so that way you guys understand that. It says here, Judah is displaying a passionate display of grief, and their gates, their city, are weak, and they are dark and ashy like the ground. And if you come up the way that I've come up, so I came up and I was raised in New Jersey. My grandmother, of course, she's from Georgia, the Carr family, but from Georgia. But she taught us right after you take that bath, right? When you come out of that tub and you dry off, you had to do two things. You had to put lotion on and Vaseline to make sure that your skin was not ashy. That's what my grandmother made us do. Lotion and that petroleum Vaseline, right? So again, Judah is displaying a passionate display of grief, and their gates, their city, are weak, and they are dark and ashy like the ground. That's exactly what the text is saying here. But we're not going to stop here. So what's the biblical Israelite skin complexion? I already gave it to you. I could give you other scriptures. Are there any other clues? Let's go to Amos chapter 9, verse 7. Let's go there. Let's see what the Tanakh says. And I'm going to give you different readings of this text so that way you can understand what it says. I'm going to give you a couple of different transliterations. But this is the Tanakh, 1917. Are ye not as the children of the Ethiopians unto me, O children of Israel? Saith Yahweh, have not I brought up Israel out of the land of Egypt, and the Philistines of Kaphort, and Aram from Ker? Now this is coming from the Peshitta. This is what it says here. Behold, are you like the Ethiopians to me, O Israel? And I want to make this clear. This is not just referring, this is not dealing with spirit. This is dealing with the physical the physical bodies of Israel. This is a physical Israel, not a spiritual Israel, as many will teach with these poor theologies out there. But behold, you are like. The word like means having the characteristics. That's what it means. Having the characteristics. That's what it means. Again, I'll say it one more time. Having the characteristics. So behold, you have the characteristics of the Ethiopians unto me. In other words, this is dealing with the physical appearance. All right. So let's deal with the word Kushi, right? That transliterates to Ethiopian. Let's deal with this and let's peel the layers off it. Let's see what it means. Let's see what it says here. So if we go to Kushi, right, it says Kushi, Kushite, Ethiopians. But notice what it says at the bottom here. See Kushan, and it says their blackness. See, it's pointing us, right, getting us going, and pointing us to the primitive root word. Remember, we did the primitive root word for Quadar. And notice whenever you see me teach, I am going to the primitive root word. And that's where you start from. Because that'll give you proper clarity on what you're reading. Remember, ancient Hebrew, and I'm going to do a lesson on this. As a matter of fact, I'm going to get my Patreon channel up and going this week, and that's a promise. Ancient Hebrew did not have all these vowel sounds that you have today. It didn't. Only thing it had, it started out with just the ah sound. Everything that you hear beyond that are what is called diminutions. In other words, stretched, modified sounds of the ah. But anyway, but not getting into all of that right now. But you see here it says Kushan, their blackness. That's important. So key quote, see Kushan, their blackness. Well, let's go to Kushan. Let's see what it says. Notice what it says here. Kushan, a region of Arabia, Kushan. But nevertheless, you see Kushan equals their blackness. We're dealing with their skin complexion. All right. But let's go to Habakkuk chapter 3, verse 7. Let's see what it says. I saw the tents of Kushan in affliction, and the curtains of the land of Midian did tremble. All right. Just showing you the proper use of that particular word. Okay. But let me give you another reference here, another source, right? The prophet Naveen. Let's see what this says. And this is still coming, a Jewish per se transliteration of the Torah and the prophets. Let's see what this says. To me, O Israelites, you are what? Just like the Ethiopians. Now we have another text that says what? Israel is just like the Ethiopians. In other words, they look just like them. Skin complexion. Remember, the word like means having the characteristics. Declares Yahweh. Declares Yahweh. So we see that Israel looks just like the Ethiopians. But guess what? We're not going to stop right there. That's right, Miss B. When you understand over in Israel today, the word Kushi is interchangeable with the N word. And we're going to touch on that next Thursday when we do the playbook. All right. But you see it here. This is, I've given you different transliterations showing, but we're not going to stop here. Let me take you to a key prophecy, because I already proved to you that Israel, they are dark like you and I. But now we have to start making a connection, right? Because that's one of the things people will ask you or prove to me that the Israelites, we are the Israelites. Well, guess what? We could go all through the text and see that Israel began to migrate to West Africa. But I want to share a few additional prophecies that's very key. Now, Isaiah chapter 18, verse 1 through 3. Let's go there. Woe to the land shadowing with wings, which is beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. I'll read that again. Woe to the land shadowing Salah, right? Or Tazal, or Tazala, however you want to pronounce it. Some pronounce it by saying Salah, or Tazala, or Tazal. Not going, not getting into all of that. But nevertheless, woe to the land shadowing with wings, which is beyond Kanap Yam, the rivers Nahar of Ethiopia, Kawash. Now, you know what? Let me do something real quick because I want to deal with that word. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it today. I was going to do it today, but I'm not going to do it today because I have to modify my slide here, and that'll take a little time. But which is beyond Kanap Yam, the rivers, all right, Nahar of Ethiopia, Kawash. So this is a key prophecy, but let's go to the next two verses. That sendeth ambassadors by the sea, even in vessels of bulrushes upon the waters, saying, Go ye swift messengers to a nation scattered and peeled, to a people terrible from their beginning. Hitherto, a nation meted out and trodden down, whose land the rivers have spoiled. Doesn't it sound familiar? Let's go back to the previous verse. Woe to the land shadowing the with wings, which is beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. That's a key phrase here. Beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. Make a note of that. Verse 2, that sendeth ambassadors by the sea, even in vessels of bulrushes upon the waters, saying, Go ye swift messengers to a nation scattered and peeled, to a people terrible from their beginning hitherto, a nation meted out and trodden down, whose land the rivers have spoiled. Sound familiar, right? Verse 3, all ye inhabitants of the world and dwellers on the earth, see ye when he lifted up an ensign on the mountains, and when he bloweth a trumpet, hear ye. So many believe and teach that this text, that Isaiah is prophesying judgment against the ancient nation of the Ethiopians or Ethiopia. I'll say that again. Many teach that Isaiah is prophesying a judgment against the ancient Ethiopians. And just a little history here, somewhere around 714 BC, King So or Shabako conquered and established the 25th dynasty. Ethiopia maintained its control over Egypt until 633 BC, when the Egyptians, excuse me if I butcher this, but Psammetichus recaptured the throne and put an end to Ethiopian domination. See, many was teach and say that the scriptures refer to the Ethiopians, a judgment coming to the Ethiopians. But I beg to differ. Is this prophecy spoken concerning the Ethiopians or Israel? I believe it's Israel. Because when we go and tie this into another key prophecy, right? Because there is a beyond the rivers of Ethiopian prophecy spoken by another prophet. Let's go to Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 9 through 10. For then will I turn to the people a pure language. In other words, the Most High is going to clean up our language. He's going to bring us together to where as though we're as it says here, that they may call that they may all call upon the name Bahasham, Yahweh. Call upon the name of Yahweh to serve him with one consent, Akkad, one consent, serve him, Abad, right? Or Abadah. But it says, I will turn to the people a pure language that they may all call upon the name of Yahweh to serve him with one consent. But here's the kicker. From beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, my suppliants, even the daughters of my dispersed, shall bring mine offering. So we see the scattering beyond the rivers, beyond the waters of Ethiopia, Kawash or Cush, beyond those waters. We see that in these two prophecies that are highlighted. One is a prophecy of being scattered and the judgment there. But this prophecy right here is a prophecy of restoration. One is a prophecy of judgment, but the other is a prophecy of restoration. This prophecy is the prophecy of restoration of Yah's scattered people, or how Yah is going to do what? All the people that was mocking us, that we was at the butt end of their jokes, byword, astonishment, a proverb, that these same people are now going to what? Bless us. That's what when you go further into this text, that's what it means. So again, key quote, from beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. But guys, I can't just leave you hanging here, because let's go to a map. You could go do the work yourself. You could follow me along here. You could just Google Princeton University African maps, and it'll take you to this link right here. You'll see Northwestern have a library too. But there's the link down here for those that want to get the link. But I want you to see here. Oceanus Ethiopiacus, or Ethiopiacus, right? What do we see here? This is Ethiopia. We see the Ethiopia Ocean. And by the way, in the entire continent of Africa at one time was referred to as Ethiopia. But beyond the waters of Ethiopia, right? This is the waters of Ethiopia. What is beyond the waters of Ethiopia? That's pretty straightforward. What is beyond the waters of Ethiopia? As you see the Ethiopian Ocean as it's being referenced right here. You see the equator, there's the name. But right here, Oceanus Ethiopiacus, or Ethiopiacus, right? So beyond the waters of Ethiopia. That's what the scripture says, beyond. We also see a beyond the waters in the prophecy of Isaiah. Let's bring it back up here so you guys could make the correlation. Let's go back here. Oh, to the land shadowing with wings. Wait a minute. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the eagle, the wings, the symbol of the United States, woe to the land shadowing with wings, which is beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, as sendeth ambassadors by the sea, sending all these different explorers by sea. Excuse me. Sending these explorers by sea, when we start getting into the transatlantic world war, even in vessels of bulrushes upon the waters, saying, go ye swift messengers to a nation scattered and peeled, to a people terrible from their beginning hitherto. From their what beginning? A nation meted out and trodden down, whose land the rivers have spoiled. All ye inhabitants of the world and dwellers on the earth, see ye when he lift up an ensign on the mountains, and when he bloweth the trumpet, hear ye. In other words, there's a judgment. Doesn't it appear right now that there's a judgment that's taking place that we've witnessed this past year and a half? We're not getting into all of that tonight. Let's go back to Zephaniah 3, verse 9 and 10 again. From beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, my suppliants, even the daughters of my dispersed, shall bring mine offering. This is a scripture of restoration of Israel. So from the beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, going right back to this map, beyond these rivers, I gave you two scriptures, right? To help you give clarity, to make sure we understand that when you are witnessing, if someone asks you these questions, you can go to these verses. Now, if they want to choose to, to take it the way they want to take it, guess what, guys? You just, when you start understanding the scriptures, when the scripture says one water, right? The other planet, one planet, the other water, the Most High will give the increase. Guess what? When you understand the hardest portion of doing landscaping, seeding, is the tilling portion of it. That's the challenge, because you have to tear up the ground so that way the ground is set to be able to receive the seeds. That means you have to sift through the ground and get rocks out and things like that can hinder the seed from growing. And what I'm saying all of that to say is, just do your part. Just say what you have to say, whatever the Most High give you, and just keep it moving. Don't even waste your time going back and forth with arguing with someone. So what was the original name of the continent of Africa? Well, many would say Akibulan. All right. So that's a great question. Appreciate it. So Akibulan. All right. So what's the biblical Israelite skin complexion? I gave you some scriptures, and I just gave you additional prophecies. I broke down the word Cush or Kawash. I broke it down and showed you that name means dark, right? I showed you that Quadar means ashy dark. But I'm going to take it a different angle on this portion of it, of this question, of the answer to this question, rather. I want to give you some history of a particular group of people that we see that are referred to themselves as well as, over there in Israel as Israeli. But let's answer these questions. Let's deal with it some more, some additional scriptures. Let's deal with another group of people. But before I do that, I want to start with some key information about Freemasonry. And I'm going to do this presentation again, and I encourage you guys. There's a couple of presentations I did on Freemasonry, and you'll see the full presentation there. But let's deal with a key word, God. And I'm going to tie this all in to a special group of people. God. And this is coming from the Encyclopedia of Freemasonry. And I encourage you guys, don't go out purchasing these books, and especially if you don't have a prayer life and you're not sound in the word, because a lot of these sources can mess you up if you're not careful. All right. So again, don't go out here trying to get these sources. I used to be a Freemason, and this is some of my sources from years ago. I went through when I was in Osan, Korea. But don't tap into this stuff if your spirit is not in the place it needs to be. But let me read this real quick. God, the initials of Gomer Oz Dabar, or Uz Dabar. It is a singular coincidence. It says it is a singular coincidence and worthy of thought that the letters composing the English name of deity should be the initials of the Hebrew word wisdom, strength, and beauty. The three great pillars or metaphorical supports of masonry. So what this is saying is, it's asking the question, is it a coincidence that God, or that letter G that you see, many will say it means geometry, right? Because when you start getting into catechisms and all of that, you'll learn in Freemasonry teach that the universal language is geometry. That's why you see the square and the compass, all right, which forms the hexagram, all right. So they seem to present almost the only reason that can reconcile a Mason to the use of the initial G in its conspicuous suspension in the east of the lodge in place of the delta, the triangle, right? The delta triangle. The incident seemed to be more than an incident. That's where you see the initials here. You see the G stands for Gomer. U, strength, wisdom, Dabar. All right. So in Freemasonry, right? Freemasonry will lead you right into the Kabbalah. I'm not getting into that tonight. But it also promotes the worship of Gomer. That letter G stands for Gomer. So Freemasonry is going to show you how to worship Gomer. I got sources that tell you that the Caucasian woman had to what? Serve her husband, be faithful to her husband like he is God. And if you understand the Constitution, if you understand, the different things that was put in place, the person that everything was for the Caucasian male. The Caucasian woman didn't have the same benefits. Everything was in place for the Caucasian male. So that letter G stands for Gomer, the worship of Gomer. Every fraternity and sorority is going to take you to the worship of Gomer. So why is this important? Because Freemasonry promotes the worship of Gomer. So again, why is this important to know? Glad you asked. Let's go to Genesis chapter 10, verse 2. Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, Japheth, and unto them were sons born after the flood. The sons of Japheth, Gomer. Wait a minute. The sons of Japheth, Gomer, and Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, Tiras. And the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz. So we see that Ashkenaz is the grandson of Japheth, but we see Ashkenaz here. Was that a coincidence? Right? Hebrew definition of Gomer, not going to get into all of this, but we see that Gomer is the name of Japheth's son. I'm not going to get into all of this. All right. So again, why is this important to know? Why is this important to know? Who are the Ashkenaz? Who is Ashkenaz? As I just pointed out, I broke down and said that the scripture tells us that Ashkenaz is the son of Gomer, the grandson of Japheth. But we have the scripture here, and excuse me if my presentation is out of whack here, because I put this together literally probably about 30 minutes before I went live. So I was trying to put something together, the presentation together, so that way I can have an order of what I want to teach tonight. All right. So here we see the sons of Gomer, and we see Ashkenaz, Riphath, Togarmah, and the sons of Javan, Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, right? The Greeks, Dodanim. By these were the isles of the Gentiles, divided in their lands, everyone after his tongues, after their families and their nations. Well, let's deal with Ashkenaz. And again, Gomer is the father of Ashkenaz. And I want to make this clear. 90% of the Jewish community is descendants of Ashkenaz. All right. So let's deal with a key prophecy here. Genesis chapter 9, verse 27. Elohim, in your Bibles transliterate saying the Lord, but Elohim, and some of you guys will say Elohim, shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. Let me read that again. Elohim shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. Not only did Japheth dwell in the tents of Shem, he did the same, right? Dwelling in the tents of Canaan, right? And we can see that even when we look at the Egyptians and some of the other cultures who hijacked many of their identities. And that's another teaching that in itself. But we're going to keep it simple. So he shall dwell in the tents of Shem. Let me give you another source to show you how this prophecy is being fulfilled. Let me show you here. Let's look at Josephus. Josephus, in his this is coming from Josephus, the 7 books of the Jewish War. But we're going to go to chapter 5. It says this. Notice what and pay attention to what he says. After this, they were dispersed abroad, and on account of their language, and went out by colonies everywhere. And each colony took possession of that land which they light upon, and unto which God led them, so that the whole continent was filled with them, both the inland and the maritime countries. There were some who also passed over the sea in ships and inhabited the islands, and some of those nations do still retain the denominations which were given them by their first founders. I hope you guys grab hold of this. Some of those nations do still retain the denominations which were given them by their first founders, but some have lost them also, and some have only admitted certain changes in them, that they might be the more intelligible to the inhabitants. And they were the Greeks, who became the authors of such mutations. Guess what this is telling you? I'm telling you here, family. It's telling you that the Greeks going into other people's territories and changing, taking identities, taking the culture of that people, of that place that they traveled to and conquered, and made it their own. Look at what it says here. The Greeks who became the authors of such mutations. For when and after ages they grew potent, they claimed to themselves the glory of antiquity, giving names to the nations that sounded well in Greek, that they might be better understood among themselves, and setting agreeable forms of government over them, as if they were a people derived from themselves. So this is telling you, Josephus is making it clear that the Greeks, everywhere that they've gone, became powerful. They began to change, hijack everything. Let me read this portion again. The Greeks who became the authors of such mutations, in other words, changes. That's what happened to the Hebrew language. When you understand the word interpolation or interpolate, inserting something of a foreign nature into something to form something else. That's what interpolation is. And the Greeks interpolated every language, the culture of every country, every territory, every nation they conquered. And the only reason why Israel retained its heritage is because Israel paid taxes. That's why Yahweh said, render to Caesar what Caesar's, but to the Most High, what belongs to the Most High. So the Greeks who became the authors of such mutations, for when and after ages they grew potent, they claimed to themselves the glory of antiquity, giving names to the nations that sounded well in Greek, that they might be better understood among themselves, and setting agreeable forms of government over them, as if they were a people derived from themselves. So they took names and everything. This tells you right here, this is the playbook. This playbook didn't stop. They did this to our ancestors. They stripped us of our names. See, that's what we should be demanding from from the Roman Catholics. We should be able to go have access to that library and take everything that is ours. The manifest, everything that shows the original names of our people, where our people were scattered to. I guarantee you, if we had that access to that library, we'll discover so many things that they already knew about us. All right. So let me highlight some more history here. This is an article titled Highlight Out of Khazaria Evidence for Jewish Genome Lacking. This is Aaron Elhake. And be on the lookout. There's matter of fact, I'm not even going to let the cat out the bag. I'm just going to stop right here. So Aaron Elhake, a geneticist at the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. And I do have a video on this channel, and Aaron Elhake completely obliterates the notion of what many teach about the Ashkenazi Jewish community. All right, let me clear my throat real quick. All right, just had to clear my throat here, put some fluid in my throat. All right, so look at this here. I read it. Aaron Elhake, a geneticist at the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health, thinks so. In a recently published study in genome biology, evolution, he is calling for a rewrite of commonly held assumptions about Jewish ancestry. He's calling for what? A rewrite of commonly held assumptions. See, our brothers and sisters, the church and Catholicism, they're pushing a commonly held assumption. And he's calling for a rewrite. And Aaron Elhake is he's part of the Jewish community as we know them. Instead of being primarily the descendants of the 12 tribes of Israel, present-day Jewish population finds Elhake, primarily the children of a Turkish people who lived in what is now Russia, north of Georgia, east of Ukraine. This civilization, the Khazars, converted from tribal religions to Judaism between the 7th and the 9th century. So another key point I want to highlight about the Ashkenazi Jewish community. This is an article titled DNA Ties Ashkenazi Jews to Group of Just 330 People from the Middle Ages. And when you understand the Middle Ages, according to Oxford, that period begins at the 11th century. Prior to that, right, it's still part of that period, but they call that the Dark Ages, and that's when the Moors ruled Spain. But you'll see here, the Middle Ages, this is the 10th, the 11th century. So DNA ties Ashkenazi Jews to group of just 330 people from the Middle Ages. 330 people from the Middle Ages, not from the ancient times, not from the antiquities, from the Middle Ages. All right. This is an article by LA Times. It says, so say a new study in the Journal of Nature Communications. An international team of scientists sequenced the complete genomes of 128 healthy Ashkenazi Jews and compared each of those sequences with the others, as well as with the DNA of 26 Flemish people from Belgium. Right? So Nature Communications, 128 Ashkenazi Jews, and they determined that their origin did not come from Northeast Africa, which many will refer to as the Middle East. That construct was created in the 20th century, the late 19th century going into the 20th century. It goes on to say their analysis allowed them to trace the genetic roots of this population to a founding group in the Middle Ages. Ashkenaz in Hebrew refers to Germany. Let me say that again. Ashkenaz, let me read it, make sure I read it for you so you guys can see. I'm not making this up. This is coming from this source that I have on your screen. It says Ashkenaz, right, in Hebrew refers to Germany.
What?
Let me say that again. Ashkenaz in Hebrew refers to Germany.
What?
And it goes on to say, and Ashkenazi Jews are those who originated in Europe. Let me read that again. Let me read that again. Ashkenazi in Hebrew refers to Germany, and Ashkenazi Jews are those who originated in where? Eastern Europe. Let me read it one more time for the people in the back. I'm not even going to do this in slow motion. Ashkenaz in Hebrew refers to Germany, and Ashkenazi Jews are those who originated in Eastern Europe. What does it say? Originated in Eastern Europe. I want to do a little Zab Judah in here. Let me put a little jab.
It's over! It's over! It's over! It's over! It's over! It's over! It's over!
Matter of fact, let me put a little Afro thunder up in here too.
It's time to dance! It's time to dance! Dance, sucker!
All right. It's right there, guys. I'm not making this up. I'm giving you sources, but you know what? We're not going to stop here. Let me give you some more sources here. Let me give you another source, because I mentioned nature communication, and we're going to see what nature communication says. Let me pull up a source here from them. It says this: the Ashkenazi Jewish, and you see the acronym here, AJ, population is a genetic isolate close to the European and Middle Eastern groups, with genetic diversity patterns conducive to disease mapping. Here we reported high-depth sequencing of 128 complete genomes of the Ashkenazi Jews controls compared with European samples of our AJ Ashkenazi Jews. Panel has 47% more novel variants per genome and is 8-fold more effective at filtering benign variants out of Ashkenazi Jew clinical genomes. Our panel improves imputation accuracy for AJ S&P arrays by SNPs AJ S&P arrays by 28%. And covers at least one haplotype in 67% of any Ashkenazi genome with long identical bidecent segments. Reconstruction of recent AJ or Ashkenazi Jews history from such segments confirms a recent bottleneck of merely what? 350 individuals. Now, they said it in the geek terminologies, but guess what? It's telling you when it says confirms a recent bottleneck of merely 350 individuals, basically just what I shared in the previous article, that they concluded that the origin of the Ashkenazi Jews are coming from East Europe, from 350 individuals in the Middle Ages. That's why when you read the what you call it, the Jewish Almanac, page 3, paragraph 1, and it tells you that it's impossible that we should not refer to a Jew as an Israelite, nor should you refer to an Israelite a Jew. And it says, for that matter, they may have not have been Hebrews at all. That's in their own source. Okay. That's in their own source. But let me just give you a little more. I'm not going to deal with Zionism. I'm going to deal with their doctrines. We'll deal with Zionism next week, because this can be a lengthy presentation. But I don't want to deal with it. I'm not going to deal with Zionism right now, but I'm going to deal with what I want. Let me get to it here. Let's see here. Yeah, let's deal with here. Okay. Let's deal with this here. Key doctrine of Zionism. Let me deal with one of the key doctrines of Zionism. Let's see here. I see some questions here. Has anyone heard anything from their new Messiah? We'll deal with that next week. We'll deal with that next week. All right. But let's deal with a key teaching of Zionism that's a part of the propaganda machine. Let me show you here. 600, or should I say 6 million. You see this term or this number, 6 million Jews. It's always a number that's used. 6 million is a Kabbalistic number, right? It is numerological or logically predetermined, and through various dark conjuring rites, supernaturally imbued with power. As a result, it can never, ever be changed. This is critical, central to the hex. 6 million is the number. There are never more deaths. There are never less. 6 million is the number. It must be ritually repeated and publicly acknowledged. 6,000 deaths, 6,000, not 6,000, but 6 million never refers to actual deaths. It is a purely symbolic, esoteric, mystical number symbolizing the perfect results, a perfect creation, a magical great work in progress. So 6 million, right? We see that number 6, right? In Judaism, especially when we deal with the Kabbalah, right? That number 6 is a special number. Why? Because that's the 6th day that man was created. So when you see 666, that represents this system of man. But here we see 6 million. All right. So there are never more deaths. There are never less. Make a note of this. 6 million is the number. It must be ritually repeated and publicly acknowledged. I want to deal with a key word real quick. Media. Let's see what media means. And you guys probably remember this. The main means of mass communication. In other words, broadcasting, publishing, and the internet, regarded collectively, plural form of medium. So medium is the plurality of, media is the plurality of medium. So you see broadcasting, publishing, the internet, in other words, social media. And you have other mediums like the Ouija board. And many are using the pineal gland as a Ouija board. It's other things, right? So medium, the intervening substance through which impressions are conveyed to the senses, or a force acts on objects at a distance. Let me read it again. The intervening substance through which impressions are conveyed to the senses, or a force acts on objects at a distance. So let's see how these guys use medium. Let's see how they use the medium. Let's see how they use the media. But before we get there, let's define this word jury. So I'm sure you guys heard this word, but let me show you what jury means. It says ghetto, the Jewish district in town. So this is a Jewish word. Jury is interchangeable with ghetto. Okay. Jury is interchangeable with ghetto, as I just pointed out. So ghetto is a Jewish district and within a town. That word ghetto, right? Yiddish and Hebrew words used in Latin America. This is that Jewish almanac that I told you about, right? So when you say ghetto, guess what? You are promoting a Yiddish word. And we see that in hip hop, In the hip hop culture, the R&B culture, everyone wants to be from where? The ghetto. Everyone wants to promote the ghetto. The ghetto. It is a Yiddish word, contrary to what many think and believe. Matter of fact, right? Kosher is not a biblical word. Kosher is a Yiddish word. Quadash is the Hebrew word for holy. Again, not kosher. Guys, we have so many layers and layers of poorness and deceptive teachings that we've been subjected to from every angle, from Christianity, Judaism, Islam, to all these different religions right here. You see it right here. We've been deceived from every last one of these religious systems. And we still are flocking. When I say we, our community still will fight tooth and nails protecting these systems. Right? So again, Kodesh comes from the primitive root word Kadash or Quadash. That's the primitive root word Quadash. I always go to the primitive root words. Right? So again, let me show you here. I don't want to just talk about it. Let me be about it. Let me show you what it says. Ghetto, Yiddish, from the Italian diminutive for borghetto. In other words, a little borough. As early as 1611, the word meant the place where the whole fraternity of Jews dwelled together. Let me say that again. As early as 1611, the word meant the place where the whole fraternity, notice what it said, fraternity of Jews dwell together. So let's deal with Jewry real quick. I want to show you a source here, but we're just going to touch on this just a little bit about Jewry. This is coming from the Outline of History, H.G. Wells, page 1920. Actually, 1921 is the year it was written, but page 494. On one occasion, the Udameans, being conquered, were all forcibly made Jews. This is important to understand, right? Because when you even go to the Jewish encyclopedias, they don't hide their connection to the Edomites. They don't hide Udameans. That's the Edomites. They don't hide their connection to the Edomites. Now we know that the Khazarians are not Edomites. They converted to what the Edomites brought to that area, because there were Edomites when Rome sacked Israel, Jerusalem, all fled. It wasn't just the Israelites fleeing. Many of the Edomites fled, and they too landed on within the Iberian Peninsula. And they were still at war with the Hebrews, the Israelites that was out there. So the Edomites, right? And there was many that converted to the Edomites religion, right? Version, if you want to say, of the belief system of the Israelites. And guess what? The Khazarian king embraced it. Had a choice between Christianity and Islam, and also what we would call Judaism today. And Judaism is what they embraced because it was still similar to what they were practicing. So notice what it says here. We're all forcibly made Judah. There were Arab tribes who were Jews in the time of Muhammad, and a Turkish people who were mainly Jews in South Russia in the 9th century. So notice we see Turkish, we see Arabs, we see how the identity of Israel began to be exploited even more. Judaism is indeed the reconstructed political ideal of many shattered people, mainly Semitic. The main part of Jewry never was in Judea and never come out of Judea. Let me say that again. The main part of Jewry never was in Judea. Whoa, that's something to think about right now. It says the main part of Jewry was never in Judea. The main part, the ghettos, was never in Judea, and had never come out of Judea. So it's saying these communities wasn't in part of Judah originally, Judea. That's the territory that Israel lived, and had never come out of there. All right. So it goes on to say here, manifestly, this intercommunicating series of Judaized communities had very great financial and political facilities. They could assemble resources they could stir up. So we're going to stop right there. Let me see what I have here. All right. And I'm going to go deeper into that when we deal with Zionism to explain that even more, the previous source that I had given you. Another thing I want to deal with, still dealing with medium, right? Charm. It says incantation, magic, charms, right? We see enchantments, religious formulas. Then you see the word canary, in other words, to sing, right? Make you become what? An echo. Make you become, because canary is also tied into the spirit of ventriloquy. In other words, make you become what? A body that they use as a medium to control. Anyway, we'll deal with that another time. Charm, to recite or cast a magic spell. To enchant, to fill someone with desire. And we see that playing out right now. And we're still going to tie this into the 6 million number that we talked about. So remember, 6 million, and we're dealing with charms. I showed you charms for a reason. Let me go back here. To recite or cast a magic spell. And I'm going to show you that there was a charm, there was a magic spell that's on the number 6 million. So the 6 million number magic spell is continuously rehearsed through media. Remember, there are never more deaths. There are never less. 6 million is the number. It must be ritually repeated and publicly acknowledged. So let me give you how this spell. Let's deal with this propaganda machine, and we're going to wrap up with this. Right? Let's deal with this propaganda machine. Let's deal with the media. We see a lot going on in media today. I tell you, Kwame Brown, I was going to upload one of his videos and do a playbook off of it. Right? Kwame Brown got the whole media turned upside down for shutting down Stephen A. Smith, for shutting down Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson and the Breakfast Club, been quiet for 20 years. Now he got the media turned upside down because he's challenging all of them for 20 years of ridicule while he sat quiet. But anyway, so notice this right here. $1 billion fund to rebuild Jewry. Remember, we dealt with Jewry, the ghettos, the communities, the boroughs, right, of the Jews as we know them. New York Times, October 18th, 1918. And this is just where you could go at to see. I always give my sources. This where you could get these articles from. I have an account to their archives, and I could get this. You could get it as well. But notice what it says here. October 18th, 1918, printed headline. 1 billion fund to rebuild Jewry. $1 billion is a lot of money. $1 billion. If you only knew how much the United States paid for the whole territory of Alaska from the Russians, not even scratching the surface with the $1 billion. So $1 billion fund to rebuild Jewry. 6 million souls will need help to resume normal life. Notice what it says, 6 million souls. And it goes on to say 6 million Jews need help. This is October 18th, 1918. This is well before the Holocaust. And here's the official article right here. This is the actual article that I have, that I downloaded. 6 million souls will need help. Let me go to another one. September 8th, 1919. Ukraine Jews aim to stop pogroms. New York Times. All right. Ukrainian Jews aim to stop pogroms. But notice what it says at the bottom, that 127,000 Jews have been killed and 6 million are what? In peril. Remember, always going to use that 6 million. That 6 million is the number. Notice the date of this, September 8th, 1919. And here's the actual article. This is an archived copy of the article. November 12th, New York Times, 1919. Let's see what it says. The successive blows of contending armies have all but broken the back of European Jewry, he said, and have reduced to tragically unbelievable poverty, starvation, disease, about 6 million souls. Notice what you say here. 6 million souls, or half the Jewish populations on the earth. Notice 6 million souls. We still see the 6 million well before the Holocaust. And here's the actual article right here. 6 million souls, or half the Jewish population of the earth. May 7th, 1920. Look at what it says here. The Fund for Jewish War suffers in Central and Eastern Europe, where 6 million face horrifying conditions of famine. But guess what? They received $100,000. Jewish War Aid gets $100,000. And this is back in May 7th, 1920. 6 million, that's the number. And here's the official article right here. So why are these articles important? Why are they important? The Jewish community began to promote the narrative of 6 million Jewish victims 30 years before the Holocaust. 30 years. Remember, I told you that's a Kabbalistic number right there. They say they try to say that they got that number from the amount of characters that's in the Torah. 6 million, or they'll say 6 million or 600,000, and then they take the number 10, or should I say the yad, and multiply it to get the 6 million. So he says 600,000 characters, and then again redemption, the 10th letter. See, it's a lot deeper, guys. It's so many levels, layers to this, right? Not levels, but layers to the deceptions that we're dealing with. That's why Yahweh Shai, when you start understanding Matthew 5. When he said, not a jot or tittle shall you don't even change, not a jot or tittle. In other words, the jot is the 8th letter, right? The iota, right, is actually the iota or ieto. I'm even messing it up. The aorta, right? That is the 8th letter of the Greek alphabets, which comes from the 10th letter of the Hebrew alphabets, which is the yod, not yod, but yod, right? The yod, the number 10 means redemption. And the Messiah is saying, you touch even the hairs of any one of the letters, man, you're in trouble. That's what he was telling his disciples. Don't even think about touching even the hairs, because the ancient letters, the actual way that they were written, not the Syriac block letter stuff, the ancient letters had hairs. Okay. So let's wrap this up here. All right. Let me see here. Who says, let me look at some of the things here. Prescott carried the J.P. Morgan bondage for the money to be distributed to German Jews. It was, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we're going to deal with this next week for sure. Let's see what else we have here. World War I and II was planned. Truth be told, Akil Bonner, the World War I, if we want to put it in proper perspective, is was held and taking place well before that. we can actually look at the transatlantic slave trade was actually a world war. They used the articles of war, and I have the documents to show that, to go against our people. So that was a world war. So technically, World War III has already happened. All right. So again, let's wrap this up here because I'm getting kind of tired here. I've been up late and it's been a long day here. So the Jewish community began to promote the narrative of 6 million Jewish victims 30 years before the Holocaust. So what is the meaning of the Holocaust? The word itself. This is coming from Oxford Dictionary. This is what it means. The mass murder of Jews under the German Nazi regime during the period 1941 to 1945. More than that, go to number. What does it say? 6 million European Jews, as well as members of other persecuted groups, were murdered at concentration camps such as Auschwitz. It said more than 6 million Jews, as well as members of other persecuted groups. So 6 million is the number, remember? And I'm going to debunk this number right here. This is not me trying to belittle and disrespect anyone that took place, that had lost loved ones or whatever. That's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm not trying to insult. Because truth be told, if we look at the Holocaust, or which, if we want to look at our community, we had tens of just those that have died didn't even make it to the Americas, tens of millions. All right. That didn't even make it past that first leg. All right. So notice it says here 6 million European Jews. But the etymology dictionary of Holocaust, let's see what Holocaust means. It says sacrifice by fire, burnt offering. So they're saying that there was when you say Holocaust, you're saying there was a sacrifice by fire, a burnt offering. Whoa, that doesn't make sense. It says a thing holy, burnt, burn whole. Originally a Bible word for burnt offering, given wider figurative sense of massacre, destruction of a large number of persons. And notice what it says. It says here, let me go back here. First recorded, it says the Holocaust Nazi genocide of European Jews in World War II, first recorded 1957, earlier known in Hebrew as Shoah or Shoah, which means catastrophe. You see where I'm going? 1957 is when that word Holocaust began to be used, but it means burnt offering. The word itself was used. I didn't put it all up in there. All right, so we'll stop right there. So again, originally a Bible word for burnt offerings. Well, let's go there. Ilah, burnt offerings. Let's see what it says here. Right? Doesn't sound like Holocaust to me. But it says he immigrated to Israel. Well, we see here was brought up, was taken up. When we go down to entry number 3, he caused to go up on the altar said of sacrifices. But it doesn't say anything about what they made it out to be. You don't see that there. Ha-Allah. That's where they're saying that the word come from? Holocaust? As we see here, going further, it says, was offered, said of a sacrifice. He elevated, praised, he lifted him up. Okay? So the word Holocaust has the overtones of what? Human sacrifice. We know the Most High did not allow Israel to do any human sacrifices. He never had. I mean, when you look at Abraham didn't carry out the human sacrifice. The Most High gave him the ram. Okay, so the word Holocaust has the overtones of human sacrifice. So when did the burnt offering, Allah, Allah ever represent human sacrifice? To fully understand this question, start by understanding bloodletting, but we're not going to deal with all of that today. But I want to close out with this last source here, still staying on the 6 million number. Poland agrees to change Auschwitz tablets, just so that way no one can say that, hey, Pastor Kelly is teaching hatred. No, I'm not. I'm going to give you a source to show you that it was not 6 million that was killed or murdered during World War II. Poland agrees to change Auschwitz tablets because remember they said 6 million, right? But look at what it says here. Poland agrees, this is coming from the New York Times, Poland agrees to change Auschwitz tablets after 50 years of deflecting the request of Jewish groups. The Polish government has agreed to change the wording. So it was some Jewish groups, right? So not all the Jewish community agreed with this. There were some Jewish groups, just like you have a lot of Jewish groups, right? Orthodox Jews that don't roll with the Zionists. As you saw illustrated in the interview I uploaded that was done by Moray Brown. So after 50 years of deflecting the request of Jewish groups, the Polish government has agreed to change the wording on stone tablets at Auschwitz. And I'm not even going to butcher this name, but you get the gist of it. But it goes on to say 1 million Jews died during World War II. Wait a minute, it says 1 million Jews. The adjacent Nazi camps where more than 1 million Jews died during World War II. The move follows decades of appeals by Jewish groups who say the current plaques do not fully reflect the suffering of Jews. They're and focus too heavily on the camp's non-Jewish victims, while thousands of non-Jews were among the estimated 1.5 million killed at Auschwitz. That number dropped even more. The victims were predominantly Jews. So it says that 1.5. So the number is lower than 1.5 because it's saying there were also other victims. We know at least 70,000 from 72. Anyway, the estimates from 70 to 200,000. This is not even dealing with the Holocaust per se that was the Germans were doing in North Africa, but here anywhere from 70 to 200,000 of our people here in Germany is part of this number. But they say the victims were predominantly that. All that's just saying is that most of the victims within this 1.5 million were of the Jewish community as we know it. Now, these are this is the original tablet. Notice what it says, 4 million. But now when we go over here, we see 1.5 million. And let's just go with that. So you take 4 million and subtract 1.5 million, you still have 2.5 million. So we could just that alone, we could take that 6 million and subtract 2.5 million from that 6 million. Now we have what? 3.5 million. And if you go to the Jewish Almanac, that number decreases tremendously. So this is not me making it up. This is not me making anything up. I'm giving you nothing but sources here. Let's see here. I have video of Prescott Bush. Okay. Forward it to me offline, sis. That'll be fine. My email is is on the screen as well. All right. And I think that's the final slide that I'm going to go over. Let me make sure here because I don't want to go into another area. I want to stay right. Let me see here. Yeah, we'll stay right there. All right. So as you see here, guys, this is not me making this up. This is information you can have access to for yourself. This right here shows you what media can do, the power of media. spell casting through media, as I just illustrated to you. This number dropped even more. But again, here, notice what it says. It's two different, these plaques read differently. 4 million people suffered and died here at the hands of the Nazis murderers between the years. You see here, but here it says, forever let this place be a cry of despair and a warning to humanity, where the Nazis murdered about 1.5 million men, women, and children, mainly Jews, from various countries of Europe. Auschwitz. All right, I'm not going to butcher the name, but you get the understanding of that. All right. So there you have it, family. I just wanted to do a late night. I want to do a late night right now. A late night lesson, so that way you can see for yourself. That's right. We got to give some 3 pieces out here to some of this poor, deceptive doctrine, this propaganda machine. Let's give it a 3-piece. All right. Actually, let me give it a couple more pieces here. Get a couple of chicken wings here. One more chicken wing. And let's toss it out. Well, family, really appreciate you guys for tuning in tonight. We will be back here. I will be back here, Yah willing, on Sunday at 4:00. We'll do the truth talk. We will continue with the unnatural affection. We'll deal with the spirit of perversion that is plaguing not just our community, right across the board, but we dealt with a lot of information that we presented. So I really appreciate you guys for taking the time out. And again, if you guys have not subscribed, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Get those likes up. Hopefully we're at 100. I haven't taken a look at it. If any one of you guys want to sow into the ministry, the Cash App is at the bottom of the screen, as you see here. It's Pastor, well, as you see, $ Pastor PFR, as you see coming across your screen at the bottom, $ Pastor PFR if you want to sow into the ministry. But with that being said, family, I appreciate you guys for taking the time out of your schedule to watch this late night presentation, and go back and watch it tomorrow. So with that being said, family, until we come back again, I pray that you have a great Shabbat, get all the rest that is needed. As Moses said to the children of Israel in Exodus chapter 14, verse 13 and 14, he said, under the instructions of the Most High, he said, fear ye not, stand still and see the salvation of Yahweh. These Egyptians that you see today, you'll never have to deal with it again. Whatever strongholds, whatever devices that people have put in place to try to sabotage you, any of these people, these agents, any of these people that's trying to undermine what Yah is trying to do in your life, these strongholds, these things will never have power over you again. The Most High will fight for you. But here's the kicker. You, me, we as a community, we must hold our peace. Can't go back, can't stay here. Keep moving forward. Shalom.